The Senate has called for urgent reform of the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAAC, to include representatives from local government and area councils. This move follows a recent Supreme Court ruling affirming that local governments are constitutionally entitled to direct allocation from the Federation account rather than through state governments. Currently, FAAC only includes federal and state representatives, a structure the Senate says is outdated and inconsistent with the Constitution. Lawmakers argue that direct LGA representation will improve transparency and accountability in fund distribution. Some senators have proposed formalizing this change through legislation to ensure local governments and area councils have a direct say in national revenue sharing. For more on this story, I have in the studio with me Barrister Jide Ologun. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. How would the inclusion of local government and area council representatives in the Federation Account Allocation FAAC reshape the dynamics of fiscal allocation in Nigeria's multi-tier governance system?
It's been disclosed that it will promote inclusion and, of course, accountability and representation, because going by the decision of the Supreme Court that the local government areas should have their allocation directly from the Federation account, it's also important that they should be represented in managing the interest of the stakeholders, because as it stands now, only the federal government and the state government are represented. And I think it's a good one. But the question is whether this will help fight corruption. It's a different ballgame, because if under the present dispensation we still have corruption, then we must set up a special mechanism to ensure that the virus of that corruption is not extended. And then by Section 4 of the Nigeria Constitution 1999 as amended, the National Assembly is empowered to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria, because some states have even tried to see how to circumvent the decision of the Supreme Court by making laws that may help them retain that mandate of joint account between the state and the local government. It's a good one, and if it's achieved and if we have transparency really, that means whatever allocation comes to the local government areas will help in grassroots development.
You heard some lawmakers arguing that direct LGA representation obviously will improve transparency and accountability. But some senators are proposing formalizing this change. What do you make of it?
You know, really, the court has pronounced and it should stand as law. But like I just mentioned now, the National Assembly is there to amend, if necessary, or come up with laws that will give wings to that intention of the Supreme Court, that funds that are meant for the local government areas must be released to them directly, instead of passing it through the state government, because the complaint is that some governors sit over this money and they allocate to the local government what they feel should be released to the local government, which has hindered the desired development at the grassroots level. So going beyond just making the pronouncement that, okay, release their money to them, I think they should also be, close to the corridor of powers and managing and contributing to the administrative management of that allocation.
Let's take it a bit. Let's look at the legal angle more. What would you say the constitutional and legal precedents are that underpin the Senate's call for direct representation of local governments?
Absolutely. I mean, representation means you are where decisions are made, and you can represent your interests to reflect the desired intention of carrying out the development. Like they say, you are either by the table or on the table. So it's a good one. And what that does is that it gives higher and greater authority to the local government authority to decide. Don't forget that we are talking about federal allocation now going to the third tier of government. And I think the third tier of government should be represented rather than being represented by state players. And that may now allow them to be stronger in their deliverables.
Yeah.
But having said that, like I said, politically speaking, the state governors are still powerful. In fact, my comment when this issue of the Supreme Court decision came out was that I hope some local government chairmen will not collect the allocation and take it to the governor. That's, sir, take it and give us what you think you should give us, because right now we have not been able to deal with the influence of godfatherism and the fact that for you to even emerge as a local government chairman.
You know, some people will also argue that the reason the former system of allocation exists is because they don't want it to, the LGAs to become too powerful and less dependent on the state government. But we're going to have to come to that. Let me quickly bring in Professor Anthony Kila, Political Economist and Director of the Commonwealth Institute for Advanced Professional Studies. He's joining us from Lagos via Zoom. If you're there, Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, we've lost him, so let's come back to you. What I said before, you know, trying to get Professor Kila in here. The general feel among a lot of politicians is, you know, these people are going to get out of hand. Do you share that insight?
I do not. When you talk about authorities, we have 3 tiers of government. It's like the president, who is the #1 citizen at the national level, saying a governor is too powerful. The governor also is the #1 citizen at the subnational level, at the state level. So the local government chairman also should preside over the affairs. And we are talking about allocation. Without funds, how can development come? What we should focus on now is how do we make the elected officer at the local government level and those who will work with him or her accountable.
You took it out of my mouth.
Accountable, so that when they receive that allocation, it is spent for the right purpose, which is, according to Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999, as amended, the security and the welfare of the citizens. And if you want to put this in a capsule, you talk about local development, you know, which we now reflect in state development and at the macro level reflect in national development. And I think that is the way to go. But like I said, because it used to be a political tool, you know, a huge control for the governors, and now when you talk about the concept of change management, it won't be an easy thing for the governors to just release that there used to be a power tool for them in the past. So, but let's see how far this will go with the National Assembly.
I think that's it. It's a wait and see game, if you like. It's everyone keeps asking how this will be implemented. Really, it always boils down to implementation, doesn't it?
Definitely. But like I said, even the Supreme Court decision should be enough. But then, if there's a need to come up with specific laws to ensure that that decision is effective. The National Assembly has the power. We have 109 senators and 360 House of Reps members, you know. But in Nigeria, there are 2 issues that will influence the direction, which is politics and governance. And often it appears that politics has the stronger muscle. But then what will help us will be good governance. Because like someone said, what we need is not a shift of power, but a shift of leadership.
That's
and
right.
attitude and character.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Barrister Jide Ologun, as always, for coming into the studio to discuss this very important development with us. Thank you.
God bless Nigeria.